Namaskar. Hello friends. Varna system, individual gunas, that is personal genetic makeup, are responsible for the person's qualities, capabilities and weaknesses. The Varna, that is caste system, is based on this concept so that every person engages in an occupation and the corresponding duties that suit his nature. It is clear that Varnas are not a family legacy but a natural slotting in accordance with one's nature and capability. So what it means is, for example, if a Brahmin's son is not intellectually well endowed, he may not remain a Brahmin by occupation simply because he is born of Brahmin parents. He may as well take up a physical occupation like manual labor that does not require much intelligence, and thus he can become a Shudra by virtue of his gunas and karma. On the other hand, an intelligent person born of sweeper parents may pursue good education and become a Brahmin by his gunas and karma. However, society seems to have found imposing caste system based on family legacy easier to operate, because otherwise distribution of tasks may have become disorderly, hampering the working of the society. A family-based caste system seemed to help manage the society's activities in an easier way. It was probably thought that if freedom is given to people to choose their occupation, some tasks may not find any takers, while there would be too much rush for certain other tasks. It is also possible that the elite wanted to protect their own turf and didn't want anybody and everybody to step into it. Sense experiences. Our 5 sense organs are programmed in such a way that they like some things and they dislike some others. For example, our skin is comfortable with temperatures within a narrow range where we feel pleasantness. But outside that range, we feel unpleasantness. We want something that pleases our sense organs to continue all the time. However, the pleasant feeling that the sense organs have does not last for long. So why crave for something that is so short-lived? And we hate something that is unpleasant for our sense organs, and we even get angry at having to suffer that unpleasantness. But we should remember that anger and hatred are causes of the destruction of human beings. When one thinks about an object that gives sense pleasure, a desire and then a craving for that object arises in his mind. This craving makes the mind agitated, and if there are some obstacles in fulfilling the craving, the mind becomes angry. An angry mind tends to lose its ability to think in a balanced way and often ends up committing some blunder. This kind of mental state makes one inattentive, and hence his memory does not store the external inputs. Intellect builds up on the basis of inputs received and the patterns that it can form from them, which become a guide for future pattern matching and decision making. These patterns are cause-effect relationship patterns. But since an angry mind comes in the way of storing all the inputs in the memory, the intellect does not develop for correct decision making. This finally causes the destruction of the person because a badly developed intellect hampers good life. Therefore, it is wise to not give too much importance to how sense organs perceive things because that is their nature. We should cultivate an ability to take sense pleasures and displeasures with equanimity by training our mind through constant contemplation. The way to attaining equanimity of mind is through control on sense organs. However, sense pleasures are very powerful attraction for the mind and it is not easy to keep away from them. The seeker must try to keep his mind away from the objects that the sense organs find desirable. Like, for example, good music which the ears find desirable. He should keep contemplating on God so that to that extent his mind does not think of sense pleasures. A seeker needs to realize that there is no real lasting pleasure in pursuing desires relating to sense organs. He needs to be convinced that pleasure or pain is a state of mind. He should realize that it is possible to be established in a permanent bliss that is internal and independent of external world of objects. It is then that such a seeker will be able to turn away from the external world and be focused on his soul. One who cannot manage this will always find his mind unsteady, swaying from happiness to unhappiness, and hence peace of mind will always elude him. It is relatively easier with some practice to control other sense organs, but controlling the tongue, which is the taste sense, is the most difficult because it relates to food and food is life. However, one should develop the habit of not going for food mechanically or unconsciously, but rather questioning oneself every time a desire for food arises. One should ask if there is really a need for food. Ask if you are really hungry or low on energy. Ask if it is only the taste buds that are craving for some good tasting food. Unless food is really needed at that time, one should try and avoid eating. Then, over a period of time, one will be able to control the tongue well enough. Desires, that is lust, is the greatest enemy of spiritual seekers. Desires are so powerful that they occupy one's mind completely to the exclusion of all the wisdom. That is why it is very critical for a sincere spiritual seeker to work towards reducing and eliminating desires. For that, control over sense organs is necessary. Only then he can get the spiritual wisdom necessary for liberation and self-realization. There are three types of desires: satvic, rajasic and tamasic. Satvik desires are those that relate to spirit rather than the physical. For example, a desire to go to a temple or to a pilgrimage place, etc. Rajasic desire is one that is sense or ego driven. For example, eating good food or looking for praise from the boss. Tamasic desires are those where we want to get sadistic pleasure out of some harm to some other person or simply want to laze around. Whenever we get a desire, we should ask ourselves what kind of desire it is. If it is a satvik one, we should immediately proceed to fulfill it, because if we debate on it, we may drop it. If the desire is rajasic, we should ask ourselves if it is really necessary to fulfill it. We should try and postpone action on it and have a rethink after some time. Then we may often find that the desire drops off on its own. If it doesn't, then only we should try to fulfill it, but in as moderate and honest way as possible. In case of a tamasic desire, we should straightaway try and reject it. When spiritual wisdom has it that sense pleasures should not be sought, then a doubt arises as to why is it that we fall prey to them. The reason is that we are driven by a basic desire or lust to enjoy this physical world and the pleasures that our sense organs feel when in contact with the various external objects. This lust is an inherent aspect of the way we are made. It is an attribute of rajas guna. Rajas guna is activity oriented. So it is the one that creates a lust and pushes us into some action to fulfill that lust. When the lust seems to be not getting fulfilled, we get angry and are pushed into even more action. That is a kind of a vicious cycle that rajas guna puts us into. That is why we need to be conscious of it. We should not try to suppress sense desires, because that serves no purpose. By simply suppressing a desire, we cannot avoid thinking about it if the desire is strong enough. Then it would be pretentious to outwardly appear to be not indulging in desires, but inwardly craving. Better way is to gradually let the desires drop by themselves, and for that we should contemplate. We should ask ourselves about the need to fulfill a desire when it arises, and ask ourselves what exactly we will get by fulfilling that desire and whether it is really worth it. It is such conscious effort to analyze our attitude to desires that will gradually and over a period of time make the desires drop on their own. Even when sense pleasure is coming one's way without seeking it, one should keep his mind under control and not get attached to that sense pleasure. As one's desires reduce, his karma also automatically reduces. Such a person has nothing to gain by either engaging in actions or not engaging in actions. So his actions may continue, but they do not amount to binding karma. I will stop here today and see you the next time. Until then, bye. Take care.